Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going on a rapid-fire journey through the glowing, colorful world of the screens we literally stare at every single day. I mean, think about it. We spend thousands of hours looking at these glowing rectangles, from our phones to our TVs to our laptops. But honestly, very few of us actually know what's happening just millimeters beneath our fingertips. So let's dive right into this. If you look closely at these beautiful floating layers of red, green, and blue glass components, casting shadows on the circuitry below, you'll see we're going literally behind the glass today. We're going to decode the physical mechanics, the engineering trade-offs, and the absolutely incredible evolution of modern display technology. Because by the end of this explainer, you're going to understand exactly what you are paying for when you buy your next device. And we really need to do this because the modern display market, it's an absolute maze of acronyms. Just look at these intricate metallic blocks. LCD, OLED, mini-LED, micro-LED. It's a literal alphabet soup of screens. But here's the secret. Each one of these machined concepts represents a completely different architectural approach to manipulating light and color. And we're going to demystify this exact maze right now. Here is our evolutionary roadmap for this explainer. Number 1, LCD, the Trusty Classic. 2, OLED, the contrast king. 3, mini-LED, the bright challenger. 4, micro-LED, the holy grail. And finally, number 5, the display technology matrix. Okay, section 1, LCD, the trusty classic. The LCD is basically the dependable workhorse of the modern tech world. This is a technology whose roots go all the way back to the late 1960s, and its physical architecture is actually fascinating. If you look right at the very bottom of the stack in this 3D render, you'll see a massive glowing white panel. That's the backlight. In an LCD, that white light is literally always on. It pushes up through a structural grid which houses a layer of liquid crystals. Now, those crystals act exactly like tiny mechanical window blinds. They open and close to let that backlight pass through the red, green, and blue color filter cubes sitting right there on the very top. And because we've been refining this since Sharp was building full-color panels back in 1988, manufacturing is highly efficient, it's incredibly cheap, and it's highly durable. But there's a catch. The catch is the fundamental problem with having an always-on light source. Check out the phones here. When a screen is supposed to be black, an LCD often produces this milky, light bleed gray, like you see on the left. That's because those tiny liquid crystal window blinds we just talked about, they can't perfectly block the massive glowing backlight sitting right behind them. Light just inevitably sneaks through the cracks. Now compare that milky gray to the display on the right, which is achieving true pitch-black darkness with a single crisp star. To achieve that kind of true black, the tech industry realized they had to throw that massive backlight out entirely. Which brings us to section 2, OLED, the contrast king. OLED was the industry's direct response to those milky gray blacks, and honestly, it completely changes the game. OLED stands for Organic Light-Emitting Diode. Notice anything different in this render? The big white backlight panel at the bottom is completely gone. Instead, look at those individual, physical, glowing, domed nodes sitting directly on the wire grid. Every single microscopic pixel produces its own light. So if the screen needs to show black, like the dark gaps you see in the grid there, the pixel literally just turns itself completely off. That's it. No light bleed, zero milky grays. You get infinite contrast, true inky blacks, and huge battery savings on your phone if you happen to be a dark mode user. But OLED isn't perfect. Because OLEDs run on organic material, they really struggle against the sun. They simply cannot achieve the blinding peak brightness of an LCD without risking some permanent damage. Just look at the glaring brightness limits on the left side here. And worse, if you push an OLED too hard or say, leave a static image on it, like a news ticker or colored bars, for hundreds of hours, the organic pixels literally degrade under the heat. As you can see on the right, they leave a permanent, ghostly image etched into the screen. We call that burn-in. So the industry needed a new architecture, something with the intense, durable brightness of an LCD, but the incredible contrast of an OLED. Enter section 3, mini-LED, the bright challenger. Mini-LED is a robust, modern compromise designed specifically to solve OLED's burn-in vulnerability while finally fixing the original LCD's contrast issues. Technically, a mini-LED is just a highly advanced LCD, but instead of one giant white backlight at the bottom, manufacturers shrunk the LEDs way down into this tiny, incredibly dense grid of white lights you see here. They grouped these thousands of microscopic bulbs into what are called local dimming zones. So if a specific area of the screen needs to be dark, like that gray patch shown right there, that specific cluster of LEDs can be independently turned off.
The result? You get incredibly intense brightness that's perfect for a bright, sunlit room, absolutely zero risk of burn-in, and black levels that get impressively close to OLED.
It's an exceptional compromise for sure, but not a flawless one. See that literal glowing bloom spilling out around the crisp white text into the pitch black background? That is called the halo effect. Because those dimming zones we just looked at control clusters of pixels rather than individual ones, they aren't totally pixel perfect. So when you have a really bright object right next to a perfectly black background, the light just sort of spills over into the adjacent zones.
And that leads us to Section 4, MicroLED, the Holy Grail.
Guys, this is the absolute pinnacle of display engineering. MicroLED replaces the degrading organic material of an OLED with tough, ultra-bright, inorganic LEDs. I want you to look incredibly closely at this render. You can actually see the microscopic, individual, physical red, green, and blue LED bulbs sitting proudly right on those metallic circuit board modules. That means a microscopic, physical light bulb exists for every single subpixel on your screen. It is practically flawless. You get the perfect pitch blacks of OLED, peak brightness that absolutely shatters LCD records, and absolutely zero burn-in risk. The catch? Well, it's the astronomical price tag. To put in perspective, back in 2021, Samsung sold a 110-inch micro-LED to consumers, and it cost $148,000. Yeah, you heard that right. So right now, this flawless tech lives mostly in millionaire private home theaters and massive Hollywood virtual production sets.
Section 5, the Display Technology Matrix. With all that incredible engineering in mind, let's summarize how these distinct architectural approaches actually stack up against each other. Walking through these detailed metallic slider bars on the matrix, you can see LCD sits at just 20% for black levels, due to that always-on light we talked about, but OLED absolutely nails the full 100%. However, if we drop down the peak brightness, OLED falls behind at 50% due to those heat limits, while Mini-LED pushes up to a brilliant 85% without the high burn-in risk. And of course, straight across the board, MicroLED pegs all the performance meters to a flawless 100%. But as you can see, it carries a massive $5 sign cost. It perfectly maps out the precise trade-offs of modern engineering. To ground all this complex tech in reality, let's look at this quadrant chart. It maps out exactly where the devices you might literally be holding right now fall on a scale of cost versus picture quality. Down in the bottom left, low cost and good quality, you've got the trusty LCD powering things like your car dashboard and budget TVs. Move up and to the right, and you find OLED inside your premium smartphone and smartwatch. Right beside it, Mini-LED powers high-end laptops and premium tablets built for bright environments. And way off in the top right corner, achieving completely flawless picture quality at an astronomical manufacturing cost, sits MicroLED on massive digital billboards and movie sets.
To truly appreciate where we are today, we have to look at the sheer scale of this evolutionary journey over the last several decades. Tracing this mechanical timeline, it starts with the very first operational LCDs back in the late 1960s, moving into those bulky, sharp, and Texas Instruments calculators in the 70s. Then, the industry takes a massive step forward with the first commercial Sony OLED in 2007, pushes through the mass production of Mini-LED by TCL in 2019, and finally arrives at the cowering, brilliant architecture of MicroLED, which is actually predicted to reach widespread consumer viability by 2027. It is nothing short of breathtaking. Which leaves us with a final, provocative thought to ponder. As those microscopic, inorganic LEDs inevitably get cheaper to manufacture in the coming years, will the screens of tomorrow become completely indistinguishable from looking through a real glass window? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer today. I really hope you walk away with a profound sense of wonder about the glowing glass you stare into every single day. Stay comfortable, stay curious, and keep looking behind the glass. Catch you next time.